It's Thursday. That means it's Legacy Day here at Brave New Coin. Let's take a look at some legacy correlations and charts. Some interesting drop-offs in correlation here for BTC. Starting with the VIX. The VIX still above 17. Historically, it has never held really above 15 for an extended period of time. A declining VIX is bullish for crypto. In general, it just means risk-on environment for the most part. High VIX is high fear. So you don't want to see a high VIX. You don't want to see coronavirus numbers creep up. You don't want to see lockdowns. You don't want to see mask mandates. None of that stuff will be bullish for the VIX, or all of that will be bullish for the VIX. None of it will be bullish for crypto because it represents a disruption of normal life. So you definitely don't want to see that anywhere in the world, but specifically the United States. So pay attention to that. That's definitely at the forefront of most people's radar anyway right now. DXY correlation was briefly positive, returning negative again. Ideally, these long stretches of negative correlations with the DXY represent strength in BTC as well. Gold still extremely negative here in the blue, and then the 10-year note still holds a relatively high correlation with BTC. And the Nikkei does as well, much higher than the SPX and NDX. Just very interesting times because investing long-term in SPX or NDX right now seems silly based on the technicals, seems fine based on the fundamentals, infrastructure bill, multi-trillion-dollar budget. Money is just going to keep getting printed, debt being created. Fiscal conservatism does not exist in the current paradigm, didn't exist in the last paradigm either. Historically, BTC hasn't held negative correlations. And ideally, again, much like the Dixie negative correlation, we'll see a return to the positive correlations of SPX and NDX. The oddness is that the 10-year note and the Nikkei both look like they're rolling over to me, more so than BTC does, despite this high correlation here. So I don't think any of this is necessarily helpful right in the moment, because we're living in a clown world fantasy land. DXY, just kind of holding that level. Looks a lot like the altcoin DeFi charts, looks a lot like ETH did. Had this W, had this inverted head and shoulders. The difference being with ETH is that it actually completed, or is very close to completing, its edge to edge through the cloud on the daily. It's definitely completed its expected technical move off of the W double bottom based on 1618 and measured move. So DXY is yet to do any of those things. I'm still bullish on DXY, which is problematic for crypto. I hope I'm wrong. I hope this goes for lows. I hope this goes sub 88. All of that should be incredibly bullish for crypto. So that's definitely something worth watching still, just once a week. Pop it up, look at it. Okay. Are we above 92.5, right? That's kind of the big level we're watching at the moment. You definitely want conditions to be on your side when you're longing crypto in a big way, or you're moving capital into crypto in a big way, especially coming off of the run we had earlier this year and the sort of recovery that's happening right now. I still think it's a trying time for crypto, even though everything looks great right now. Looks very bullish. Until we have a golden cross or above the cloud, just basic trend metrics, then I'll get more and more confident on crypto stuff. Here's the 10-year, which is not bullish at all. Looks increasingly bearish as a matter of fact. So hopefully this correlation with BTC declines significantly. Gold, I just think, is in a no man's land, untradeable inside the weekly cloud. It just looks like a mess. Very similar to how it was a mess in 2011 to 2013. That's the thing about trading legacy and metals and Forex. Some of this stuff can act incredibly slow. Here's silver, which has fallen out of its ascending triangle potential. I'm still holding my position, maybe as a hedge, I don't know. Just convincing myself everything's going to be okay. It's still on trend on the weekly, fine, unless it gets sub 23.5. I'm not too worried about it on trend, but it's definitely looks like it's done with the ascending triangle potential there. And the SPX, again, it's in fantasy land. It doesn't matter here. Technicals don't matter. It doesn't matter that it's extremely high above its fast moving average, the Tenkan, the slow moving average, the Kijun, even accounting for the average effect it had on March 2020. It's just still going like the Energizer Bunny. It doesn't matter. Just new all-time highs every other week. despite continued bearish divergence. So technicals for me, this is a scary time because this is where all sorts of new people start to pile in to stuff like this and get euphoric, make a little bit of money, and inevitably they lose it all and then some when this thing pulls back eventually. I think it's been 180 days since a 5% pullback on SPX. So it's definitely due for some downward volatility. NASDAQ as well, just consistent bearish divergence since the Corona low, although it has tapped this Tenkin 4, 5, 6, 7 times now. So at the very least, it's mean reverted quite a bit, at least on the higher time frame, or on a lower time frame basis, taking into account the higher time frame Tenkin here on the daily. This would look like a Kijun bounce or something. But still, it's very far above the TK lines, bear div. It's somehow weaseled its way through the yearly pivot, pushing all-time highs. You know, it's just hard for me to get bullish when stuff looks like that. Here's the Nikkei, which is in some sort of falling wedge. Looks very much like BTC in that it's below the cloud. They attempt a push up here, but there's a chance that this could break up. It is bearish on trend until it's back above 29K, but it doesn't look terrible because it has such an orderly downward momentum here. So I don't hate it for the long side. Even if you're just trading this range, it looks fine. GME, you know, it doesn't make sense why it ever got up here really in reality, other than just, you know, the market's going to market. Doesn't make sense that it held this level for this long. Doesn't make sense that Doge is still 20 cents, right? So this should eventually retrace dramatically, especially if there's any COVID restrictions. But in the near term, it does have this 4-hour bull div that's pretty substantial, even though the trend says be careful down here. This could mean revert to 250, and AMC as well, very similar. You have this bull div that could mean revert to the cloud here at around 40, but trend-wise, both of these are definitely done ski for the moment, need some chill. Coin, big bounce, just continued. Again, this doesn't, the thing about these charts, they don't look real. Like markets, I don't know. I've only been doing markets for like 8 years, but you don't see stuff like that too often. You know, like this BTC and ETH move, you don't see 14 days in a row of up, 14 days of green candles. The probability of that historically is extremely low. Nevertheless, coin has enjoyed all of that bullishness as well, bouncing from 228 to 256. Still down quite a bit from its direct listing, but it looks pretty good for a bottomy type of signal. It had the falling wedge, it had the bull div previously, that broke up, M double topped, then you had your inverted head and shoulders, and now it's favorable on the hourly trend again above all of the VPVR resistance. This is Coinbase, by the way, in case you weren't sure. So you can use these as a sentiment gauge for crypto. You can look at correlations, but it looks as though institutional stuff is bullish for crypto right now. MSTR making new local highs, multi-week, multi-month highs. If this thing gets above 810, I like new highs for BTC and ETH as well. If this thing breaks all-time high before BTC and ETH, which I think is doubtful, but if it does, I also like BTC and ETH. This is like 80% plus BTC, so most people I think at this point are treating MSTR like a Bitcoin ETF, like an ETF for Bitcoin. So this looks good for up at least to 807. Tesla, which holds a crap ton of BTC, still don't understand why this thing didn't break down. None of the fundamental stuff coming through is favorable necessarily, but hey, it's above its volume resistance, it's above the diag resistance, and looks like it wants more. This looks like a high and tight flag on the 4-hour, so this should go for higher highs, honestly. Looks fine for up, even though it doesn't make much sense based on what's going on in the real world. Square, again, they hold a ton of crypto. Quarter after quarter, every earnings report, they're just reporting lots and lots of crypto sales, BTC sales through Square, which is great. And they're all at all-time highs today at 281. Bounced off the 200 here. Looked for a moment like it was going to be sayonara in the near term for Square, but they turned the corner with those earnings. Just monster earnings. They've also announced BTC wallet that they're developing. Cover ETH and GBTC, still negative on the discount, or still negative on the premium, however you want to think of that. It still has a discount, as does ETC. But if these flip positive to a premium again, I doubt that they stay at a high premium because the people who are able to sell at that point will probably sell. There was a big hubbub about all of the unlocks coming, and that sort of came and went in July. And it's unlikely that any of those people are selling at a discount. They're probably waiting for at least parity before they start selling again. So keep that in mind. I don't think we'll ever see a massive premium again on GBTC or ETH because there's so much yet to be sold from people who are still holding. Here's the GBTC chart though. I mean, it's got a golden cross in the next couple of days. It broke the RSI downtrend. It puked out the bottom on a bull div, found support kind of in a random place at 23 or whatever that is, and it looks fine. This looks like the bottom panic is in for the most part. And if this flips bullish on trend, you got to wonder, do people who trade this stuff look at GBTC alone? Do they look at BTC futures on CME alone? Those charts look fairly different than they do on the USD side of things. So I don't know. I'm sure they pay attention to everything, but to see trend metrics reflip bullish so quickly is definitely interesting for GBTC. ETH really has been bullish this whole time. Had his bull div down here in this W. So this looks fine. This looks fine for up, looks fine for all-time high retest, at least effective all-time high, not listing all-time high. And it looks good for up, honestly. ETH looks fine here. The CME futures dates, we had a rollover on the 30th, and we saw that insane push. I don't know if this was a gamma squeeze or if this was that large call buyer. I don't know what this was. It was very weird. You don't see that often. Again, that's not normal, natural. You could argue it's a type of manipulation or predation on shorts, however you want to think about that. Very weird, but we stopped dying, which is good. And now we're pushing highs continuously. ETH coming off of London yesterday, burning lots of ETH. Just, bullish things are happening, right? China might be gone, but it's hard to ignore the bounce we've had on BTC and ETH. So overall, you don't want more coronavirus anything in the world, even though it looks like that's coming. You don't want legacy markets to break down, even though that looks like it's coming. You don't want Dixie to break up, even though that looks like it's coming. And hopefully crypto can just keep doing its own thing, regardless of what's going on in the world. Last, I'll just mention the ETH-BTC fund and DeFi portfolio I trade for Techemy Capital on Enzyme.finance, non-custodial portfolio management tool, where you can see everything, including AUM, allocation, performance, all the trades that I make, when and where, and for how much, all of the yield plays on the DeFi side of things, and deposits, withdrawals as well. So that's all I have for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.